right under 40.
Under 40?
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Perfect. Cool. There we go. Got it.
Vanessa Purefoy is working towards a dream that just a few years ago wasn't even on her radar.
We're gonna do a lap or two in the pattern and we're gonna head out to the practice area. So just a nice, easy training flight.
Nice, easy training flight. All right, let's do it then. I will climb in this bad boy.
Perfect.
So we are in a plane right now, about to take off with a student from United's new Aviate Academy. A bit nervous, but let's do this. Purefoy is training to become a pilot with United Airlines, which became the first major airline to launch its own flight school at the beginning of this year. But United is making another push. It said half of its recruits are going to be women or people of color. A pretty ambitious goal for airline pilots who are 93% white and 95% male. Black women make up less than 1% of the pilot industry.
I have a confession, guys. I have never seen a black woman fly a plane. What made you want to become a pilot?
So I was a flight attendant for 3 years at a major U.S. airline and absolutely loved it. The pandemic changed a lot of stuff, and then it really put it into perspective because last year I had cancer.
Oh, wow.
Luckily I caught it early and it was, easily treated, but it really helped me put into focus on what I wanted to do.
Had you seen a lot of black women pilots growing up? Like, was this something that you thought was even possible?
No, I was with an airline for 3 years, and I saw 3 at my airline. Task message, fuel scheduler.
Over the last few months, flying has been a nightmare. Airlines have jacked up ticket prices, and hundreds of thousands of flights have been delayed or canceled.
Travelers are once again taking to the skies as airlines struggle to keep up with demand.
With more than 2 million people now traveling every day this summer, we're now matching pre-pandemic highs.
Virtually every airline has grounded some of its regional planes or cut their schedules.
A big reason for the chaos is there aren't enough pilots, a problem that's been in the making for years as pilots reach the required retirement age of 65. And COVID made staffing issues that much worse. But the government gave the airlines money during the pandemic to avoid exactly this type of labor shortage. And not a little either. Airlines got $50 billion, more than any other industry during that time. The airlines, however, continue to offer pilots early retirements and buyouts, underestimating how quickly travel demand would bounce back. And now, airlines find themselves trying to combat the pilot shortage with a simple solution: finding recruits who aren't just white dudes. Is that what attracted you to this program? Was that they were recruiting, black women and women of color specifically?
They are, and it's great. It's an underserved community in here, and we're just as capable. There's still the financial barrier of it all. How many people do you know growing up who could take out a $100,000 loan for flight school?
United Jet 800 cleared for takeoff.
The high cost of flight school and the years it takes to complete are just 2 of the barriers to breaking into an industry that's used marketing and instructional videos to define what it thinks a pilot looks like.
It's a 3-man office.
Pilots of color who have managed to get their licenses have always banded together to make breaking into the cockpit more manageable for future generations. The Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals holds a yearly conference to provide resources and career opportunities while honoring some of the industry's trailblazers.
Please join me in welcoming our hostess for today's celebration, our passionate, faithful leader, Captain Carol Hopson.
For many of you who know me, I like to read off script, but they've made me promise I'll stick to the script.
Captain Carol Hopson spends most of her days flying a Boeing 737 for United. Over the last 2 decades, she's become one of the most well-known black female airline pilots and is currently launching a campaign to send 100 black women to flight school.
I was a journalist right after college, and I settled on being a reporter. I settled on being a writer because it was something that I could do, I loved doing. But I had always wanted to fly an airplane. I just never seen any women, any black women, and just couldn't see my way to it.
You said that being a reporter was something that you thought you could do.
Sure.
So you thought as a child, you could not be a pilot. Tell me about where you were getting those messages from.
Everywhere. Women in airplanes were, at the time, stewardesses. They were flight attendants. But I had just never seen a female pilot.
Back then, Hopson had never heard of Bessie Coleman, the first African-American woman and the first Native American to get her pilot's license. It's a story she now knows very well. Last year, 100 years after Coleman's first flight, Hopson published a book about Coleman's life. What inspired you to tell her story?
When the Wright brothers made their first flight on December 17, 1903, she was 11. Her whole family, brothers and sisters, picked cotton. Her mother had been born a slave. Imagine 100 years ago that that's what she wanted to do. It was impossible. That makes her a superhero in my eyes because she was doing things that nobody saw.
In August, American Airlines joined the race to put diversity at the forefront. They marked Bessie Coleman's 100-year anniversary by promoting its first all-Black female flight crew. But that kind of representation has always been the goal of Sisters of the Skies, a nonprofit that offers mentorships and scholarships to Black women in aviation. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you've experienced as a Black female pilot in this white male-dominated industry?
I've had instructors that were like, you shouldn't be here. Shouldn't you, look into something else, go into another field? It's just a very short history, but it's one plagued with, you're only here for, affirmative action. So we've always had that stigma, like we are lesser than.
When did you start to see an uptick in interest from other airlines to try to recruit more Black talent?
All these companies, they want more diversity. They're like, okay, now we want women. All right, where are we going to find qualified Black women? SOS filled that void. And so it was more so us looking for them. But now with the pilot shortage, it's just nice to have, them actually come look for us.
Becoming a pilot is a long and thorough process. Good news for the safety of passengers, but bad news for an industry quickly trying to change what its workforce looks like. The FAA requires 1,500 hours of time in the air to fly for an airline, and flight school usually only covers 250 hours. Pilots often pick up the rest by doing things like crop dusting or flying banners. And it usually takes another few years to land a job at a major airline. So getting as many diverse candidates as possible to fill the void isn't just good PR. It's also just simple math.
We cannot equip our flight decks or our maintenance bays or our offices with the same old mentality. Without people of color and women, we will not be able to staff our flight decks.
Catherine Creedy has been covering the aviation industry since the 80s. Do you think that this push towards diversity is genuine, and why now?
I actually think that this is not an altruistic move on airlines' part. They're benefiting from, yes, we need a higher diversity in our workforce. Investors are now looking into this. They want to know what the board looks like. They want to know what the C-suite looks like. And they are more likely to invest in a company that has diversity than does not.
Like most workplaces, getting diverse candidates in the door doesn't always mean they move up the ranks. United has a 22-member executive leadership team, and only one of those people is Black. In 2020, United's executive team got a diversity rating of a D+. The highest ranking of the 8 major airlines, JetBlue, got a C+. Michael Bonner has been flying for United for almost 30 years and is now in charge of recruitment and pilot strategy at the airline.
If people look at United's board, which is online, it's not the most diverse group of faces. How can we ensure that there is a culture of diversity if there's not a lot of people that look like you and me that has a large seat at the table?
So, I can't comment on the board and where we rank, but I can tell you that diversity, equity, and inclusion at United Airlines is a full force right now. So we have the first Black president of a major U.S. airline. As the pyramid gets smaller, getting more color and diversity into the upper levels of the pyramid is a focus.
Do we get this push to say, oh my God, we have to cast a wider net without this pilot shortage or without the pandemic? Does this happen during this time?
Yes, it happens at United Airlines for sure, pandemic or no pandemic. We know that it is a competitive advantage in this industry to look like the customers that you serve. So it is a business advantage for us to do this.
Some people might say it's 2022 and it's about damn time, right? Yep. Like, why did it take so long? What would you say to those people?
You're right. You're right. And as soon as we acknowledge that's fact, jump on board, take advantage of the fact that it's a different time now. And why it took so long, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Shortly after we flew with Purefoy, she went on to complete her first solo flight. Where do you see the future of this industry going?
If I allow myself to dream, I see myself as not being such what they call us, a unicorn.
Good job, Vanessa. Thank you.
We're not just less than 1%. We're not statistical insignificance. We're significant. We matter.
I'm Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional news outlets shy away from the real stories and experiences of those living through global conflicts. Not Vice News. Our reporters are on the ground, fearlessly covering the human stories that shape our world. You and millions of others can continue to read, watch, and listen to Vice News for free. But we hope you'll consider making a one-time or ongoing contribution of any size at vice.com/contribute. Every contribution, no matter how big or small, helps support the journalism Vice News brings to you every day. Thank you.